Hello, welcome to Conflict Model. We're going to be taking a look at the conflict model in the PMBOK Guide 7th edition. If you read the PMBOK Guide 7th edition, page 168, it mentions the conflict model. And the major points are that conflict is common, it could be healthy when handled well. Fear of conflict restricts communication and creativity, but conflict can be unhealthy as well. When you don't address conflict appropriately, it could lead to dissatisfaction, lack of trust, reduced morale, and motivation. So the model described here is based on the work of Ken Thomas and Ralph Kilmann, and it describes 6 ways of addressing conflict by focusing on the relative power between the individuals and the desire to maintain a good relationship. Now, if you take a look at the bullet points of what you have here, you have confront or problem solve, and then you have collaborating, then compromising, smoothing or accommodating, forcing, and then withdraw or avoid. Now, if you've been tuned to this channel, you would have watched my video on conflict, quite extensive, where I actually cover this model. So I'm sure you're wondering, where is the 6th item coming from? Well, to address this, why don't we take a look at the actual website for this model from Kilmann Diagnostics. Let's take a look at the website because it's nothing like going to the source and understanding where the information is from. So if you take a look at their website, what you see is not 6, but 5 items. Competing is more like forcing, then you've got collaborating, compromising in the middle, avoiding, and accommodating. The bottom line is, depending on your level of assertiveness, you could force all the way, forcing, or if you've got low assertiveness, you could avoid. If you've got high cooperation mentality, then you could just accommodate and go with what the other party wants. But if you are averse to that, you could avoid. So when you have low assertiveness and low cooperativeness, you're going to avoid. When you've got high assertiveness but low cooperativeness, you're going to compete. In other words, you're going to force. When you've got high assertiveness and high cooperativeness, you're all the way looking to collaborate, or as we say, problem solve. So I'm going to put a link below and you can go and check out some of the data and information that's there. But when you take a look at actual reports that they've used as examples, you do not see 6 categories. So I would like to call PMI out on that as misinformation. I'm not sure where they got the information from, but here we are right from the horse's mouth. You can see there are 5 categories. The confusion comes from understanding that collaborating and problem solving need to be looked at as one. Confronting also needs to be looked at as one. You are confronting the issue, the problem, not the person, to problem solve and to collaborate. And that's the idea. So when I taught this, I taught it with the 5 categories, and that is what I'm going to show you today, as opposed to going off what the PMI has in the 7th edition, because I do not believe it is entirely correct, taking a look at the actual website from the authors of this. So here's the idea. When you have an opportunity to resolve conflict, you could think about satisfying your own needs on a very low level or on a very high level. You could think about satisfying the needs of others at a very low level or a very high level. If you think about satisfying the needs of others, then the choices are more. But the question is, how far will you go and how much time do you have? For example, driving to work, someone cuts you off. What are you going to do? Are you going to be the guy on the left-hand side at the bottom? Or are you going to be the guy all the way at the top there? You could save your life by being the guy with the white flag. That's the idea. So when you take a look at this, right in the middle, compromise or reconcile. Now, if you read what is in the PMBOK guide for compromise or reconcile, It says there are some conflicts in which all parties will not be fully satisfied. In those instances, finding a way to compromise is the best approach. Compromise entails a willingness to give and take. This allows all parties to get something they want, and it avoids escalating the conflict. This style is used when the parties involved have equal power. A project manager may compromise when a technical manager with a technical manager regarding the availability of a project team member to work on the project. So that's the example they gave. Then we have force or direct, all the way up there. Force or direct is not bad. It could be used in an emergency. It is also used in some instances badly from a power position on high to make those in a lower position comply. But it reads here in the PMBOK Guide 169, forcing is used when there's not enough time to collaborate or problem solve. In this scenario, one party forces their will on the other. The party forcing has more power than the other party. A forcing style may be used if there is a healthy and safety conflict that needs to be resolved immediately. Let's go to the next one. The next one is collaborate or problem solve. And the way I teach this is collaborate equals problem solve equals confront. That's the mindset. So here it reads, confronting a conflict treats the conflict as a problem to be solved. This style of conflict resolution is used when the relationship between parties is important, when each person has confidence in the other party's ability to problem solve. It then reads, collaborating involves incorporating multiple views about the conflict. The objective is to learn about the various views and see things from multiple perspectives. This is an effective method when there's trust among the participants and when there is time to come to consensus. A project manager may facilitate this type of conflict resolution between project team members. And to be perfectly honest, collaborate, problem solve, confront, all the same thing. I have no idea why they broke it down into two in the 7th edition. Let's move on to talk about the next one. It's avoid or withdraw. Withdraw or avoid can be a very useful one, especially when you're faced with conflict that isn't worth the sweat. And in my mind, high risk, low value. Don't do it. What are you going to gain? Just go the other way. It says sometimes a problem will go away on its own, or sometimes discussion get heated and people need a cooling off period. In both scenarios, withdrawing from the situation is appropriate. Withdrawal is also used in a no-win scenario, such as complying with a requirement imposed by a regulatory agency instead of challenging the requirement. Final one that we see here is accommodate or smooth. Now, this is all the way at the other end of the spectrum, just saying, you know what, I'm going to concede, you win for the sake of the relationship. So let's read what it says here on page 169. Smoothing and accommodating are useful when reaching the overarching goal is more important than the disagreement. This approach maintains harmony in the relationship and can create goodwill between the parties. This approach is also used when there is a difference in the relative authority or power of the individuals. For example, this approach may be appropriate when there's a disagreement with the sponsor, since the sponsor outranks the project manager or project team member, and there's a desire to maintain a good relationship with the sponsor. Adopting an accommodating posture may be appropriate. So, pretty good examples, pretty good write-ups there. However, I still maintain that this should be 5 sections and not 6. I have no idea. This is why we say, let there be more eyes on the draft, because I would have straight up said, no, go to the actual source, go to Kilmann Diagnostics and check out what they have to say about this. All right, so I hope you found this to be useful. I'm going to put a link to this so that you can read it up and get a wider idea of what an actual Thomas Kilmann mode instrument report would look like. And I hope that you find this useful in your overall studying of the guide. Perhaps it's something you could take to your office and think about, maybe even use it. All right, you take care. Talk to you soon.